And now, he's a San Diego native, a top-rated real estate professional by the Wall Street Journal, as seen on The American Dream on Channel 4. It's Whissel time. Your host, Kyle Whissel.
Hey, everybody. I am not Kyle. I'm Steve. I am one of the associate brokers over at Whissel Realty, brokered by EXP. We're going to have an amazing show this Saturday. So we've got a fantastic guest on today. We have Bill Leversee. How you doing, buddy?
Doing great. Happy to be here.
Awesome. And if you guys will see our link on YouTube after this is posted, you will see how large Bill is. He's got a former rugby player and coach. We'll get into that later. And, of course, we have Mr. Paul Johnson, mortgage professional extraordinaire. How are you?
Awesome. Great to be here.
Cool. So, as we always start, I'm Canadian, so I'm not too tied into all the baseball and the football. Football's coming, but we've got a man who's got rugby in his blood, and you went to that competition in Northern California. We'll touch a little bit on that.
Okay.
But one of the pressing matters I actually wanted to talk about, because I think this is kind of bananas, but as of today, you can put plans out on how to build guns through your 3D printer. How crazy is that? Have you guys been following that at all?
No, honestly, I haven't.
Yeah.
No,
Right?
I haven't heard of it either.
And I don't really watch the news. This just kind of came up on some post. And you can, as of today, and I know they were trying to block it, they were fighting, but as, I don't know if it's freedom of speech or whatever it is, but today you can go get a 3D printer, pull up plans on the internet, and you can build a gun. Your own gun. No safety checks, no
It's
nothing.
terrifying. Yeah.
Isn't it?
I had heard that you could do that with the 3D printers. Like, I was talking to a guy the other day who had gone to the dentist, and, you know, normally if you need to get like a crown or something, it goes to a lab. He said on the spot, they did the imaging, they printed and installed it all in one appointment.
What?
I mean, just some of the stuff you see coming out of that, I just didn't realize it had those capabilities. I'd seen maybe a year or two back that guns and weapons were something that you could do, but getting the plans and knowing how to do that were something that was really tricky.
Right.
So now you're saying
It's on the internet as of today, apparently. That's the story. So, yeah, plastic guns, that were cap guns or whatever. Now plastic guns are real guns. So those will be hitting the streets, including AR-15 models.
Yikes.
Right? It's just like, who wants to do that? Like, what's the point? I mean, I'm harping on a subject, especially being Canadian. In Canada, you can't have handguns out. You can have rifles and things like that, but handguns are so regulated in Canada. And again, gun crimes are so low. You can look at other countries like Great Britain, even their police officers, their bobbies carry sticks around primarily. You got to get a response team before they come in with a weapon. It's just crazy. And now you're flooding the streets with plastic toy guns that aren't toy guns anymore. So
yeah, and some of those can't be detected from what I understand.
They cannot
because
they can't.
Like I said, they're plastic.
Yeah.
You know, it's a touchy topic. Where I grew up in Northern California in Redding.
Yeah.
It's a very pro-gun community and culture, and a lot of it's people hunting, things like that. You know, but there's a real fierce defense of guns and the ability to own them and have them. And I'm going up to see my grandpa and grandma tomorrow, and he's been an NRA guy for decades, and it's very different when you have a conversation with them. I'm like, I have friends that own arsenals that are you would never know. They're just like some of the nicest people, and you're like, why do you have all this crazy stuff? I don't understand. Why do you need 3 AR-15s?
It's an investment.
I don't get it.
Right?
Yeah,
it's like real estate goes up, guns go up. When they were trying to ban AR-15s, those things got jacked up in price.
Crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. So you probably make money off those things, man, just by holding weapons. They just keep going up in what they cost. So I've never really thought about that before as an investment opportunity.
Oh yeah.
Not my favorite asset class.
No.
Yeah. I don't own a gun. So for anybody staking out my house, please don't.
Please don't.
But yeah, so, it's just, maybe it's the Canadian in me. It's the novelty of being able to come to America and own a firearm, own a weapon in itself is interesting and appealing. but there's just something about it that instrument means death. It means maiming. It means, I look at an instrument like that as something that means so much more than just the right to bear it. Like, you still have to be a responsible owner. And now what this has done is it's taken the responsibility part out of being an owner, because anyone can go print one.
Yeah.
So I do find that petrifying, honestly, because I don't know what this is going to mean from, here on forward.
Right, because there are some restrictions for people with certain histories or things like that. Not nearly as comprehensive as I think they should be.
Right.
And there are loopholes up with like the gun shows and things like that.
Yeah.
I understand. I don't know if that's changed, but it doesn't sound like really there's been any change. And we have all these shootings. And I was listening to a podcast where they were breaking down like how many guns we own in America, how many shootings we have, and looking at other countries. And I just can't believe after the number of shootings and things we've had, there hasn't been any material change. It just shows how strongly entrenched the lobbies and the money are. But you look at places like Australia, they just had their first quote unquote mass shooting, I want to say since like the 90s. But after they had the first one, they made some massive changes and they hadn't had one since, but there's a big difference between the time when this was written and now.
Oh yeah, of
right?
course.
It's a whole different world.
But see, if you're going to take the Australian mindset or psyche for a moment, right, and it's going to be very similar to the Canadian mindset and psyche about weapons, guns, it's been accepted universally in those countries that it's not a big deal. You don't really need it, right? Where over here, it's constitutional. It's different. It's talked about. It's ingrained into what you know about your country and the rights that you have.
It's a right as a citizen.
Correct. Yeah. It's a right. And people in America talk about their rights, which I respect. It's great.
Yeah.
But at the same token, in other countries, and I'm not saying America's wrong because it's just what we grew up with, in our respected countries and also in our respected families. You can break it down to the micro. But I'm telling you, man, in a country like what you're just saying, I didn't know those rules changed massively, like sweeping rules in Australia.
Yeah.
But it makes sense that it would be universally adopted by the population. Where here you have, Columbine or all these other shootings, and then the communities get together, they rally, they talk, it's publicized, and nothing. The fight, I don't even know what the fight is like in the back channels politically. It's got to be like tooth and nail with just, and then the politicians back down. They come up with these grand ideas, and then nothing happens.
Yeah.
It's amazing. It's that powerful.
Yeah.
So again, this is not me harping on let's take this stuff away. I'm just saying there still has to be you've opened up the floodgates with a toy that you can go buy in Best Buy.
Yeah.
You want to go buy a 3D printer and make a gun. You can now go to a store and
Which means you can circumvent
everything,
the rules, any channels,
Yeah.
That's the part that's scary.
Exactly. So, I think that's a big topic of discussion for a lot of groups, community groups, political groups, parenting groups, all of those things, because now how do you supervise your child that may have grand ideas, right? They don't even have to go to a store anymore and go stockpile this stuff.
You need to put them in rugby so they can get some of that aggression out. Right? They need to get their, what's this saying? I love this saying that you're saying, face in the spokes. They need to get their face in the spokes.
So we will change direction here because that was a heavy one. But, Bill did, he's got a long history of rugby and the pedigree that he keeps breeding amongst new coaches and your massive involvement. But before we get into that, why don't you tell our listeners about your little trip up north in California, and you got to see an amazing rugby fest.
Yeah. So what went on last weekend in San Francisco was the Rugby World Cup of Sevens that happens every 4 years per a World Cup schedule. This was World Rugby, so all the best teams in all the nations showed up, and they descended upon AT&T Park. So it no longer became the home field for the Giants. It became a international rugby festival. And what's unique about it is people really are passionate about their home team. Yeah. So Fiji, which is, they're usually in the top three in the conversation. It's New Zealand, Fiji, and South Africa. And so they have, if you know what a Fiji flag looks like, it's light blue and has some stars involved in it. But if you look in the stadium, there was just a sea of light blue, and just a great event. Games are abbreviated, so games last about 15 minutes. One team goes on, and then another team.
Really?
Yeah, another team goes off. So they do an abbreviated style of the game. So a Rugby World Cup transpires in a weekend.
Oh, wow.
You know, the Rugby World or the Soccer World Cup, which happened in Russia over the summer, as you know, took probably somewhere between 5 or 6 weeks to fully complete.
Well, sorry to interject. Just how long is a normal rugby game for the listeners listening?
So a rugby game is similar to soccer. It's 90 minutes all in. So what they do is they abbreviate the style of that game. They same field, they just cut the team in half. So instead of 15 players a team, it's 7 players a team.
That's why you said 7. Okay, I was wondering how that fit in.
Yeah, so it's essentially a sprint. You break one tackle, you could more than likely score.
Well, so I'm assuming a lot of exciting rugby.
Oh, a ton of exciting rugby. Great for the sport, great for the Bay Area, and just a wonderful tournament.
And we're going to be going to break in about a minute. But as far as, because you're kind of a star in the rugby world, right? So with all the things that you've done. So any special VIP treatment or stories that you can share with the listeners that you got to experience out there because of your, let's just call it rugby fame?
Yeah, so this is funny. So of course I played a number of years on the USA team, and we always seemed to ham and egg our way into the luxury boxes, even as players. You know, one guy would know somebody, and we would shuffle special lanyard passes and so forth. So here we are, fast forward 30 years later, we're still doing the same thing, shuffling of VIP passes, and we all had a big laugh because it just the more things change, the more they stay the same.
They stay the same, right? Well, that's awesome. So we're going to cut the break here right away. I'm Stephen Wener of Whissel Realty, brokered by EXP on 1170 AM, The Answer.